CT Reads is a year-long initiative to promote lifelong reading, learning, and connection that uses a rotating community committee structure to select 3 main book titles and 3 shortlist book titles. All CT Reads provides a supported programmatic structure built around the titles with room for individuality and creativity. Compiled support materials will include author talks, podcasts, discussion questions, and more. All CT Reads will launch in January of 2022. For our inaugural statewide reading initiative, our 2022 titles are: for kids, our primary selection is Snapdragon by Kat Lay. Our shortlist titles are The Best at It by Malik Panchuli, Efren Divided by Ernesto Cisneros, and Starfish by Lisa Phipps. Thank you to our Kids Book Selection Committee members. For teens, our primary selection is One of the Good Ones by Maika and Maritza Mulit. Our shortlist titles are Black Brother by Jewel Parker Rhodes, Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas, and The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Bewley. Thank you to our Teen Book Selection Committee members. And for adults, our primary selection is Transcendent Kingdom by Yad Jassi. Our shortlist titles are The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, Migrations by Charlotte McConaughey, and This Town Sleeps by Dennis E. Staples. Thank you to our Adult Book Selection Committee members. To learn more about our titles, visit our website at bit.ly/allctreads, or take a picture of the QR code on the screen. All CT Reads is an initiative of the Connecticut State Library Division of Library Development and partners with the Connecticut Center for the Book at Connecticut Humanities, the Connecticut Association for School Librarians, and the Connecticut Library Consortium. All CT Reads is supported by a generous grant from EBSCO Information Services to the Connecticut Heritage Foundation.
Good evening and welcome to the 2021 Connecticut Book Awards. I hope you are enjoying this virtual event from the comfort of your living room or sharing it with your friends in a watch party. My name is Lisa Comstock and I am the director of the Connecticut Center for the Book. As much as I wish we could all be together in the same room today, it was felt that the risk was a little too high, and so we are virtual again this year. Still, I'm glad to see such a great turnout and I hope you're as excited as I am. Now, I say this every year, but it bears repeating. I am grateful and humbled by the many people who've been given so generously of their time and experience. I can't name them all here. There are literally hundreds of people, but I want to thank the advisory committee, the category judges, and my fellow Connecticut Humanities staff members. Thank you for all you do. As always, thanks are given to supporters like you, our listening audience. Without you and the value you place on literature, we couldn't do this at all. Now, I'd like to welcome Jason Mancini, Executive Director of Connecticut Humanities. Jason came to Connecticut Humanities almost 4 years ago and took off like a rocket. In his short time at Connecticut Humanities, he is focused on strengthening organizational partnerships, engaging diverse audiences, and anchoring Connecticut's placemaking, public history, and integrative digital initiatives. He has succeeded splendidly by recently helping to secure close to $30 million in funding to support eligible museums, cultural, humanities, and arts organizations in the state over the next 2 years. Go, Jason. Good job. He is also co-founder of Agamot Educational Initiatives and a former executive director of the Mashantucket Pequot Museum and Research Center. Over the last 30 years, he has worked with the tribes and indigenous peoples of southern New England, Alaska, Hawaii, and New Zealand. He is an ally to these communities and works to build awareness of Indigenous rights and histories within non-Native contexts. Without further ado, welcome Jason Mancini.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm pleased to join you tonight at the 2021 Connecticut Book Awards. Connecticut Center for the Book is an affiliate program of the Library of Congress and is a program of Connecticut Humanities, which is a state affiliate of the National Endowment for the Humanities. It's a good match. Connecticut Humanities seeks to provide knowledge, expertise, and leadership as the hub and disseminator for the humanities. Supporting these goals, the Connecticut Center for the Book promotes the written and spoken word throughout the state. It promotes events throughout Connecticut, such as author readings and talks, writing workshops, pre- and post-theater talks, and much more. The center also works to promote awareness of Connecticut libraries and booksellers, as well as Connecticut authors and their books. On behalf of Connecticut Humanities, I thank all the authors that submitted their works and congratulate this year's award finalists for their achievements.
Thank you, Jason. Let me introduce you to our MC for the rest of the evening. Kim Poe has been working for libraries for over 13 years and specializes in youth services. She is currently the children/young adult consultant with the Connecticut State Library. In her time with the State Library, she's been a panelist and facilitator at a variety of state and national conferences, meetings, and trainings. She is currently the chair of the Connecticut Library Association's Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion section. Kim was recently awarded the inaugural Judy Burroughs Award by the Connecticut Crossroads Project, an award given to people whose skills and talents have a positive effect on the greater Connecticut community. Take it away, Kim.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Lisa, for such a kind introduction. As a librarian and avid reader, I was honored to have been asked to guide you through this evening. This year's award consists of 4 main categories: poetry, nonfiction, fiction, and young readers, which are broken into 3 subcategories: picture books, fiction, and nonfiction. Each category had a panel of 5 readers who reviewed each qualifying submission and based their decisions on criteria appropriate to the category. The process was rigorous, and much consideration was taken with every title submitted. Trust me, I know for a fact. A special category is the Bruce Fraser Spirit of Connecticut Award. This award is in memory of longtime Connecticut Humanities Director Bruce Fraser and celebrates Connecticut's sense of place. And now, the reason we're all here, the awards. Let me introduce you to our first presenter. Margot Schilp teaches at Southern Connecticut State University and at Quinnipiac University. And even though I went to Western Connecticut State University, I love that. She's the author of 4 volumes of poetry, all from Carnegie Mellon University Press, the most recent of which is After Swarm, winner of the 2020 Connecticut Book Awards in Poetry. She lives here in New Haven with her husband, the poet Jeff Mock, and their 2 daughters, Paula and Leah.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Margot Schilp, and I'll be announcing the finalists and the winner in the poetry category. Before I introduce the finalists, I'd like to recognize the other poetry judges and introduce them briefly. Their names are in alphabetical order. First, Antoinette Brim Bell. Antoinette Brim is the author of These Women You Gave Me, Icarus in Love, and Psalm of the Sunflower. She is a Cave Canem Foundation Fellow, a recipient of the Walker Foundation Scholarship to the Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown, and a Pushcart Prize nominee. Aaron Caicedo Kumura also served as a judge this year. He is the author of 2 poetry collections, Ubasute, which won the 2020 Slapering Hole Press Chapbook Competition, and the full-length collection Common Grace, forthcoming from Beacon Press in the fall of 2022. Jose B. Gonzalez is the award-winning author of Toys Made of Rock and When Love Was Reals, and the co-editor of Latino Boom, an anthology of U.S. Latino literature. He has been anthologized in the Norton Introduction to Literature, and he's a Fulbright Scholar and a popular speaker. He's the editor of LatinoStories.com. And finally, Pat Matola teaches creative writing at Southern Connecticut State University. She is president of the Connecticut Poetry Society, as well as a mentor for Afghan women writers living in Afghanistan and beyond. I want to quickly explain the process for this year's poetry judging. Judges received the books at the beginning of the summer. As we read all of them, we completed a points-based rubric, and after those were tallied, we met virtually to discuss the books at length, to narrow the field, and then to determine a winner. In alphabetical order then, the finalists this year in the poetry category were Courtney Davis for her book, I Hear Their Voices Singing, a masterful selection of poems where we find wise and unflinching observations of people and bodies and experiences.
Scattering her ashes. Let the day be warm and the sky in Rowayton be blue, broken with clouds. Let the bridge over the inlet be ours alone, and let me recognize her son after all these years, the boy I knew when his mother and I were best friends, single mothers in nursing school. Let us move to the railing, to the water, the marsh grasses grown summer tall, shimmering in the sun. Give us patience as we struggle to open the box that holds her remains.
Benjamin S. Grossberg for his book, My Husband Would, a formally adventurous and stunning collection of poems that braids the past and present into a tapestry of personal and political meditations.
The Dogs of Sochi, in preparation for the 2014 Winter Games. Shot with poisoned darts, tossed in trucks. Can you imagine that? The questing snout snapping back toward the stung flank, the flux of rising pavement, two-legged blur, a shout before you're hefted by front legs, thrown on a pile of your kind, the cold sour tang of death encircling theirs and your own, and then perhaps nothing.
Gray Jacobic for her book Eleanor, which uses poetry to reveal Eleanor Roosevelt's deep commitments to country, family, and friends, and gives insight into the wrenching tensions between public responsibilities and private life.
Brilliant blue sky days and deep green pines, and the sea, glorious to behold on Campo. Yet I loved fog-bound days as well, when a delicate beauty felt as near as a goddess to the Greeks. I liked to hear the wind whistle and howl in the eaves, a comforting sound to me, as if I were held dear by a tremendous soothing force.
Jason Labby for his book Maps for Jackie, a rich and radiant collection that assembles for readers a complex geography of intimacy and depth.
Map of the Ferns. All my unsent letters begin in a way, part elegy, part epistle, a map of grief in the second person. But this approach isn't direct enough. The patch of ferns too broad, wilting between two stands of pine. In all my letters, the point is lost to innuendo. Each frond withers frail under summer.
And finally, Danielle Vogel's book, Edges and Fray, on language, presence, and invisible animal architectures, a gorgeous sequence that interweaves photographs and language into a profound and moving collection honoring nature.
Start by making a loose ball of words. Bind it with the cocoons of forest tent caterpillars. Your saliva, a sphere around the ball, filled with finer sounds. To line the cup of the mouth, feathers, fur, pleats of lichen, language. To press one's body against this curve. Offer form to the problem and gift of ethereality.
We chose Benjamin S. Grossberg's My Husband Would as the winner of this year's Connecticut Book Award in Poetry. Congratulations, it's a powerful book.
Thank you. I'm deeply grateful and honored to receive this award, especially among a field of such excellent finalists. My thanks to Lisa Comstock and the Connecticut Center for the book, and also to the judges for your time reading all the submissions, and of course for choosing my book. Thanks also to the University of Tampa Press and Richard Matthews, who made such a beautiful book out of the poems I sent him. There are so many poets in Connecticut who helped me with these poems, and I would like to thank each of them by name, but it would become a kind of epic Homeric catalog if I tried. I've been in the state 12 years now, and one of the primary reasons I think of Connecticut as my home, and that Connecticut will stay my home, is because of the warm, supportive, really energetic poetry community in this state. I'm so grateful for that, and for this recognition. Thank you.
Finally, congratulations to all of the poetry finalists for contributing to the lively, diverse poetry community in Connecticut. Thank you.
Cindy L. Rodriguez is a former journalist, a middle school reading specialist, and a published author. She is also a founder of the blog Latinx and Kids Lit, which has been celebrating children's literature by, for, and about Latinx since 2013.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending. First thing I'd like to do is recognize the other judges in the Young Readers category. Doe Boyle is an editor and author of 11 picture books published in collaboration with the Smithsonian Institution and the National Wildlife Federation. Her most recent books are Hear the Wind Blow, Heartbeat, and Blink, all published by Albert Whitman Books. Kimberly Poe was the head children's librarian at West Haven Public Library and has served as a board member of the Connecticut Library Association. She is currently children's and YA consultant at the Connecticut State Library, the Division of Library Development. Melissa Tom was an award-winning social studies teacher for 12 years and is currently the librarian at Bristow Middle School in West Hartford. Melissa has served as the vice president of the Connecticut Association of School Librarians and has organized both in-person and virtual conferences with hundreds of attendees. Ayanna Wright is a former television news producer. She was the Teen Services Librarian at Hartford Public Library and is now the Teen Librarian at the Russell Library of Middletown. The Young Readers Awards are separated into 3 categories: fiction, nonfiction, and picture books. We'll start with the Young Readers Fiction category. Here are the finalists in alphabetical order. Cleo Porter and the Body Electric by Jake Burt. In this scarily prophetic novel, 12-year-old Cleo Porter and her parents are stuck inside their apartment because of a pandemic. They are safe from the disease that has nearly wiped out mankind, but at what cost? When medicine for a dying woman is accidentally delivered to Chloe's apartment, she decides to go outside and risk everything to save someone else. In Class Act by Jerry Kraft, readers return to the Riverdale Academy Day School, the setting of Kraft's Newbery Award-winning novel, New Kid. In Class Act, Drew Ellis struggles with the feeling that he often works 10 times harder than his privileged classmates. Drew faces inequities and microaggressions at school and while hanging out with his friends, and must confront others and his own feelings to accept himself and save his friendships.
That's me, Drew Ellis. First day of 8th grade at Riverdale Academy, and I'm not starting off on the best foot. I wonder how my friends Jordan and Liam are doing.
There's Mommy's little sweet potato.
Hey, Liam.
My grandma always tells me that I had to be twice as good to get half as far, but it's a lot to juggle. But like Grandma says, I have to show the world I'm a class act.
In Dress Coded by Carrie Firestone, 8th grader Molly Frost starts a podcast to protest the unfair dress code enforcement at her middle school. Through the podcast, girls tell their stories about being targeted unfairly because of the natural curves of their bodies and their choice of clothing. The girls revolt against the dress code and appeal to their local leaders to let them dress in peace. From the Desk of Zoe Washington by Janae Marks centers an African-American girl whose father was sent to prison for murder right before she was born. When Zoe receives a letter from her father claiming his innocence, she starts to learn about systemic racism in the justice system and sets out to uncover the truth with help from the Innocence Project. The Last Tree Town by Beth Turley is a novel about family, friendship, and cultural identity. Cassie has always been proud to be Puerto Rican, but she doesn't look like the rest of her family because of her light skin and red hair. With the help of a boy who has lived in town after town named after trees and her family, Cassie learns to accept herself and help others, including her sister, along the way. This year's winner of the Young Readers Fiction Award is Dress Coded by Carrie Firestone.
Thank you so much to the Connecticut Center for the Book for this wonderful honor, and to my fellow finalists for making beautiful, powerful books. It takes a lot of people to make a book, and I'm grateful for my agent, Sarah Crow, and my editor, Stephanie Pitts, and the entire Putnam team for bringing this story to life. And thank you to my husband, Michael, my girls, and my family and friends for always supporting my work. I wrote Dress Coded to start conversations. Every single story in this book is based on real-life interviews with brave girls who wanted to tell the world what was happening in schools across the country. I talked to a teen who got choked up remembering the teacher who made her raise her arms in front of the whole class to see if her stomach flesh was showing, and a teen who was sent to the room for the bad kids because she was wearing a top that exposed her shoulders, and one who was forced to line up with other girls to point out the egregiousness of leggings. These students were told day after day that their clothes are inappropriate and distracting. Their stories are the threads that weave together a system of sexism that spans many lifetimes. The enforcer, the enabler, and the bystander educators and parents uphold this system without ever thinking, why are we doing this to our children? My hope is that this book sheds light on the pervasive symptom of systemic sexism we call dress coding. Let's keep having conversations. Thank you and congratulations to all the authors being honored tonight.
Now I'll present the finalists for Young Readers Nonfiction. The first is Accidental Archaeologist by Sarah Albee. In this informative and funny book, readers learn how ordinary people have stumbled upon great historical finds, like the hikers in the Alps who discovered a body mummified in ice that proved to be more than 5,000 years old, or the soldier who stumbled across what would become known as the Rosetta Stone. With a mix of humor and facts, Albee proves to young readers that anyone can uncover secrets in our world. In Albert Hopper, Science Hero by John Himmelman, the main character, a froggy scientist, travels to the center of the Earth with his niece and nephew, junior science heroes Polly and Tad. Young readers will love this chapter book that provides scientific facts along with lots of laughs. This year's winner in the nonfiction category is Accidental Archaeologist by Sarah Albee.
Hello, book lovers. My name is Sarah Albee, and I could not be more thrilled about the award for Accidental Archaeologists, True Stories of Unexpected Discoveries. I thought I'd quickly tell you how I got the idea for this book. It happened when I was working on my previous book. I was researching this one, which is called North America, a fold-out graphic history, and it's really fun to show in a Zoom, but it folds out 8 feet, 15,000 years of history. And while I was researching 20th century Mexico, I stumbled across this really cool newspaper article. It's from 1978, and it was about a worker, a construction worker, who was laying cable beneath the streets of Mexico City, right in the heart of the city. And his shovel hit a stone, and it turned out to be a carved round stone, and it turned out to be the ruins of an Aztec temple, and not just any Aztec temple, the major Aztec temple, the Templo Mayor. So I thought, I could do a whole book about accidental discoveries by ordinary people that change what we thought we knew about history. And I already knew a few of the famous ones, like there's the Rosetta Stone, there's Ötzi the Iceman, there's the Terracotta Army. But in the course of my research, I discovered a whole bunch of other lesser known but unbelievably cool stories. So I love this book. I'm so thrilled that it's getting some recognition, and it's gathering steam very nicely. So thank you, committee. Thank you, judges. Thank you, Connecticut Center for the Book. And thank you, readers. I just so appreciate the support. And on behalf of all authors and illustrators, we couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much.
Now I'll present the finalists in Young Readers Picture Book category. The first is Let's Dance by Valerie Bowling. It sends readers twirling and tapping and spinning through the pages filled with diverse dancers who introduce us to dances from different cultures.
Do you love music and movement? Do you find rhyming words fun? And do you wonder what music and dance is like around the world? Then you're going to love this new book called Let's Dance, written by Valerie Bowling, illustrated by Maine Diaz. Published by Boyds, Mills & Kane in the year 2020. Move your bodies to music, tap your feet, snap your fingers. Try a do-si-do. Festive dances and cultures and characters from around the world. With happy, colorful illustrations that seem to move with the words. Author Valerie Bowling is happy to share her work, helping us learn more about music and dance around the world.
In Kindergarten Hat by Janet Lawler, young Carlos is nervous about starting his first day of kindergarten. Things get worse for Carlos when the flower he picked for his teacher is ruined on the bus ride. Carlos finds a way, though, to salvage the moment and calm his nerves. The Altogether quilt by Lizzie Rockwell shows readers what can happen when a community gets together and works toward a common goal. Inspired by real events in Norwalk, Connecticut, the story emphasizes creativity and teamwork as multi-generational and multicultural neighbors create a community quilt. Hazel and Twig, The Lost Egg by Brenna Burns Yu is the last one. When Hazel and Twig discover an egg in the meadow, the Mouse sisters first decide that they will hatch it themselves and teach their new pet how to fly once it arrives. Then they realize, though, that the egg isn't theirs to keep, and they set off to find the egg's proper home. The winner of the picture book category is The Altogether Quilt by Lizzie Rockwell.
Well, this is a tremendous honor. Thank you to the Connecticut Center for the Book for this recognition and all that you do to promote literacy and culture in our small but mighty state. I congratulate all the finalists, as well as anyone who has ever had the courage to take their idea and put it on paper to share with others. I want to thank my fellow authors, Katie Yamasaki, Jan Carr, and the late Nina Frankel, who supported this idea when I hatched it in 2014 at our monthly writers group meetings. Thank you to my editor, Nancy Sisko, at Random House, and my art director, Sarah Hokinson. Thank you to my husband, Ken Alcorn, who supports me in everything I do. And I especially want to thank all the characters of this book, who are real people and my dear friends and fellow quilters at Piece by Piece, the Norwalk Community Quilt Project. Like the characters in the book, we make quilts to give to libraries. We have made them for new babies and as lap quilts for our friends on dialysis. We've used them to drape a casket and bring to an abuela in Ecuador. Our young quilters have been taught by their grown-up friends to make their own quilts for their own beds. So thank you to my Piece by Piece family for letting me share you and our story with the world.
Congratulations to all the winners and for contributing to the children's literature landscape. I look forward to reading all of your future books.
Siobhan Carter-David is Associate Professor in the Department of History and Affiliate Faculty in Women's and Gender Studies at Southern Connecticut State University. She teaches in the areas of fashion studies, women's studies, and African American diaspora and contemporary United States histories. As a public historian, she has worked with museums and special collection curators on projects involving various facets of African American and broad-based United States cultural history. She is author of several chapters and articles in edited volumes, exhibition catalogs, and academic journals, and is completing her book manuscript, Issuing the Black Wardrobe, Magazine and Fashion Post-Soul.
Good evening. I'd like to recognize the 4 other judges in the nonfiction category. Daisy Abreu is an arts administrator, educator, editor, and writer living and working in New Haven, Connecticut. She has taught creative writing at the Schubert Theater and Art Summer Camp and at Co-op Arts and Humanities High School, and held positions on the board of directors of the Arts Council of Greater New Haven and the Institute Library. Tom Biezzo received his master's in library and information science from the Palmer School at Long Island University and has worked in New York City and Connecticut libraries since 1993. He is presently the director of the Bernard Memorial Library in Haddam and is the immediate past president of the Connecticut Library Association. Nicole Carpenter is director of programs and education at Westport Museum for History and Culture and is responsible for both children and adult education through engaging in instructional programs. She has worked in multiple nonprofit organizations, including Plymouth Plantation and Chaffee Arts Center. And finally, Helen Higgins, currently a board member of Connecticut Humanities and formerly chairman and interim executive director. Helen has over 40 years of direct involvement with heritage preservation organizations around Connecticut. The nonfiction finalists in alphabetical order are Milltown by Kerry Arsenault, a striking book about the author's hometown in Maine, where for over 100 years the community orbited around a paper mill that provided jobs for nearly everyone in town and what happens after work disappears.
Mexico, Maine is a small paper mill town that lies in a valley, or river valley as we now call the area, because I suppose you can't have one without the other. The hills are low and worn and carved by the waters surrounding them, and trees line the rivers which confine the town, coursing through the valley's midsection, the Androscoggin River. Just across the S-Hook and the river, in the neighboring town of Rumford, The mill's smokestacks poke holes in the white plumes they create.
God's Shadow by Alan McHale, an important and timely intervention in the field of world history that demonstrates how Islam and the Ottoman Empire made our modern world, including the Western world.
After roughly a century of squeezing the Byzantines, the Ottomans dealt them a lethal blow in 1453, when the empire's seventh sultan, Mehmet II, stormed through the walls of the Byzantine capital, Constantinople. This earth-rattling victory, a conquest both actual and symbolic, won the Ottomans Christendom's eastern capital and one of the world's largest and most strategic cities, situated as it was at the fulcrum between Europe and Asia, commanding one of the principal routes from west to east.
The Alchemy of Us by Ionisa Ramirez, an ingenious and engaging look at materials, the innovations they made possible, and how these technologies changed us.
Fireflies, with their little lanterns, have shined their way into the hearts of many, but their number is decreasing by the unknowing hands of humans who adore them. The culprits are the bright light shining overhead. It wasn't always this way. A few short decades ago, instead of too much light flooding our evening skies, it was too little light that was driving the desire for electrical illumination. The darkness worked perfectly for fireflies for eons, but the people chasing after them with mason jars were not too fond of the dark and were eager for another way of life at night.
American Rebels by Nina Sankovich, an exciting chronicle of the intertwined lives of John Hancock, John Adams, Josiah Quincy Jr., Abigail Smith Adams, and Dorothy Quincy Hancock that argues for the distinct roles each played in fomenting revolution.
The first Quincy to arrive in America was named Edmund, a name that would go on to be shared through generations of Quincy's. Edmund Quincy and his wife Judith arrived in Boston in 1633, traveling from England with the prominent Puritan minister Joseph Cotton. Because of his association with Reverend Cotton, Edmund was able to purchase title to over 400 acres of very good land, fertile and ready for farming, south of Boston.
No Way But to Fight by Andrew R.M. Smith, where the author delightfully traces George Foreman's life and career from the Great Migration to the Great Society through the Cold War and culture wars, out of urban Houston and onto the world stage.
No Way But to Fight is really the first historical biography of George Foreman. So my research process was like collecting thousands of other people's snapshots and then putting them into an album where the pictures made sense. I chose to do it, I guess, because I was a kid following George Foreman's comeback, and then a college student cooking on a Foreman grill, but I didn't really know anything about him. I didn't even know what questions to ask about him. I never imagined that one day I would ask him hundreds of questions myself, and he would answer everything.
Our winner in the nonfiction category is The Alchemy of Us by Ionisa Ramirez.
Hi, my name is Ionisa Ramirez, and I am the author of The Alchemy of Us. I want to say thank you so much to the judges for selecting my book. I am full of gratitude. I'm full of gratitude for this wonderful award. I'm full of gratitude for all those who supported and encouraged me along the way. My family, my friends, the MIT Press, librarians, archivists, so many kind souls along my journey. Thanks to them. I'm also full of gratitude for the opportunity to find these stories and to find a way for them to go out into the world. So again, thank you for recognizing my book. Thank you so much.
We on the Nonfiction Committee would like to congratulate all of the authors for contributing to Connecticut's literary landscape.
Bessie Reyna received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Connecticut Center for the Book for Poetry. As a former opinion columnist for the Hartford Current and a contributor to Identidad Latina and CTLatinoNews.com.
It's been a great honor to be part of this year's panel of talented judges who generously gave their time and expertise selecting this year's book award for fiction. They are Jason Courtmatch. It's an English professor at UConn where he directs the Connecticut Writing Project. This is his 30th year in the classroom. Lucy Ferris. 11 works of fiction and nonfiction include the recently published award-winning collection, Foreign Climes. She's a writer in residence emerita at Trinity College in Hartford. If Michelle Gardin is the creator and founder of the Elm City Lit Fest, a celebration of literature, literary arts, and literary arts of the African diaspora. And our last judge was Mark Oppenheimer, the author of 5 books, most recently Squirrel Hill, The Tree of Life Synagogue Shooting, and The Soul of a Neighborhood. He teaches creative writing at Yale. In order to properly evaluate the 34 submissions we received this year, we follow very strict guidelines. These include evaluations in writing and comments for each book. Panelists also met and exchanged ideas about each book, culminating in the final selection. This year's finalists are Spindle City by Johan Burello. The amount of research conducted by this author is clearly shown in the detailed descriptions and overall quality of this book. Burello creates a large historical canvas which illustrates the complexity of the struggles, ambitions, and aspirations of a group of immigrants working in the textile mills in Fall River, Massachusetts.
Presidential City, Fall River, Massachusetts, June 23rd. The kind of day Minister John said Jesus had promised. Crisp and sunny, though cool for June. The type of weather John's preached last Sunday that respects a man's daily toil. The paper predicted 50,000. Despite it being Friday, Joseph Bartlett was nowhere near the Cleveland mill.
Riot Baby by Tochi Uniyoshi. Riot Baby is real and riveting, as well as suspenseful. The author manages to fuse time travel with important issues of our time by mixing characters' lives with memories of events, real events, and people. A very interesting and different read.
Watts is a sponsored spot. I didn't really know what that meant until I got out here. The parole board picked it when they put all my shit through the algorithm. My records, my time in Rikers, the stint upstate, my mental health assessment, the urban wounded program Ella set me up with out here, job prospects, all of that. I told them I wanted to be out west, away from people, places, and things that bring me back to jail, and Watts was the best option that came up.
Our third finalist is Musical Chairs by Amy Popo. This book introduces us to characters who are funny and witty and willing to adapt to new circumstances and are also willing to forge new relationships while leaving others behind. Combining heartbreak with classical music, traveling from New York City to Connecticut, the author characters invite the readers to join them in their sometimes honest, sometimes a bit absurd ways in which they search and find love, friendship, and companionship.
Halfway up the leafy, winding driveway, past the grove of ferns that were beginning to unfurl along the rubbly wall, Bridget's station wagon hit a pothole. The grocery bags on the passenger seat tipped over, sending lemons and onions rolling around on the floor of the car, while one of the suitcases slid from the top of the pile and smacked against the back hatch, upsetting the cats and their carriers. Bridget slowed down.
And our last finalist is Father Guards the Sheeps by Sari Rosenblatt. This is a very enjoyable collection of short stories populated by characters who are humane, sympathetic, and witty. A book filled with captivating experiences of lives in transition.
Retail works like this. Someone walks in the door and she's yours. You may not fall in love, but you have to put her body before yours. You must see whatever it is she wants to show you. Smell her smell. Satisfy her. You must sell yourself before you sell the suit. I was 12 when I started working in my father's store. Schmers. Say what you need, get what you want. We got the whole schmer. Shorten the slogan, for Christ's sake, complained the 80-year-old accountant.
It is my pleasure to announce this year's winner of the Connecticut Book Awards is Musical Chairs by Amy Popple.
Thank you so much to the Connecticut Center for the Book. I am really excited and just thrilled to be part of this. I mean, just to be included in this pool of talented fiction writers is just such an honor for me. And thank you for all that you do to support and promote writers. I fell in love with Connecticut the first time I visited, all the way from Dallas, Texas. And now that I live here years later, I can't tell you how much fun it was to write a book that celebrates Litchfield County. I'm really grateful to my publisher, Emily Bessler, who supported me when I came to her with this idea that I wanted to write a book about a classical piano trio that reunites in a dilapidated country home. I also want to say a quick thanks to Linda Chester and Anika Streitfeld, and to David, Alex, Andrew, and Luke, and my whole family. You are all my champions. Thank you so much, and congratulations to all the winners and finalists.
I would like to congratulate everyone who submitted their books this year to the Connecticut Book Awards. And I hope that you will continue to support the Connecticut Book Awards for next year's, and to continue to extend the landscape with so many different subject matters and wonderful writing as we have seen in Connecticut in the past, and we hope to see in the future. Thank you very much.
Helen Higgins is currently a board member of the Connecticut Humanities and formerly its chair and interim executive director. Helen has over 40 years of direct involvement with heritage and preservation organizations around Connecticut.
I am pleased to present the Center for the Book's Spirit of Connecticut Award for those books that best evoke the essence of Connecticut and deepen our understanding of the state. Bruce Fraser, director of Connecticut Humanities for 28 years, was a proponent of Connecticut's sense of place. He was interested in how places evoke memory and emotions from people, how people have such ferocious identification and loyalty to their surroundings, and how the very landscape influences people. Many books submitted to the Connecticut Book Awards are Connecticut place-based. In honor of Bruce Fraser, this award highlights the value of a sense of place in literature. The judges for the Spirit of Connecticut Award, in addition to me, were Connie Fraser, a communications professional for 35 years who enjoyed a long association with Connecticut Humanities through her late husband, Bruce Fraser. Robert Thorson, a professor and interim head of geosciences at the University of Connecticut, who was an essayist, columnist at the Hartford Current for 15 years and has published 7 books. First, I want to announce the finalists in this category. In nonfiction, Hartford Scene by Pablo Delano, a personal and visually riveting meditation on Hartford's built environment today, demonstrating the layers of its architectural history through photographs depicting old Hartford buildings with overlays of the new multicultural Hartford.
There's this commonality in the sense of in the images. For example, we talk about layers of history, and what happens is that that's not only true metaphorically, it's true physically. Because if you look at the buildings, you can actually physically see how one sign was painted over another or over another.
Paved Roads and Public Money by Richard DeLuca, an engaging, readable study of transportation in the age of internal combustion, starting with the impact of the bicycle on initiating a good roads movement, to the challenges of the early automobile on our roadways, and ending with an analysis of the complexity of our current multimodal transportation system.
The bicycle craze of the 1880s and 1890s left 2 important legacies, one technological, the other social. The technology of the bicycle included much that would prove useful to makers of the automobile and later the airplane, including advanced metallurgy, improved ball and roller bearings, variable speed transmissions, shaft drive pneumatic tires, and certain techniques for the mass production of precision parts.
The History of Steep Rock Association by Carol Berggren Santelleri, a visually arresting history of steep rock land trusts that addresses broad conservation issues of forest maintenance, protecting biodiversity of streams, wetlands, rivers, critical habitats, while also telling the story of one man's, architect Eric Rossiter's, grand vision for land conservation in Northwest Connecticut.
If you were to climb to the summit of the celebrated cliff known as Steep Rock, you would be standing on the site that inspired Eric Rossiter to found one of America's earliest land trusts, now known as Steep Rock Association. From this lofty overlook in Washington, Connecticut, the tree-covered cliff drops down to the Chippewa River 400 feet below. The breathtaking view from the top reveals an array of colorful ecosystems delineated by nature rather than lot lines.
Creating Connecticut, Critical Moments That Shaped a Great State by Walter Woodward. These moments are state historian Walter Woodward's engaging essays that explore key themes in our history, ranging from why Puritans ended up in Connecticut to, as he calls it, rough justice for Nathan Hale, an essay on the Irish in Connecticut, as well as why we are called the Nutmeg State. He wonders why we can't have cigar fumes wafting in the Mark Twain house during public tours.
The story of how election cake became a Connecticut tradition goes all the way back to the days of the Puritans. One of the things that made the Puritans so pure was that they didn't believe in the annual round of Catholic and Anglican holidays. They didn't celebrate Christmas or Easter or any of the numerous saints and festival days, and for them, New Year's Day came on March 25th, so no midnight kisses or dropping ball either. While they rejected all of these supposedly invented occasions for mirth, they did believe that in the year 1662, Connecticut, for reasons still not exactly clear, got something that very much was worth celebrating, a royal charter from King Charles II that gave the Connecticut colony virtual independence more than a century before the American Revolution.
In the fiction category, The Sea Glass Murders by Timothy Cole, Murder in Westport, with an odd pair of sleuths, local policeman and former elderly CIA agent. This engaging mystery gives the reader a glimpse of the sordid underside of position and wealth in present-day Westport.
Let's take a last shot at Beachside Avenue. Hard to access that beach, but I know a way, said DeFranco. Tracy stamped her feet and rubbed her gloved hands together in the passenger side of the Corolla while DeFranco drove down the Sherwood Island connector to Nyala Farms, a pastoral scene of rolling hills and a massive 19th century barn hiding a low-slung corporate headquarters, disparate worlds colliding. They drove down Greens Farms Road and turned onto Beachside Avenue, the epicenter of Connecticut's fabled Gold Coast.
In the young readers category, Lois's Story, A Young Girl's Inspiration Helps to Stop Hate and Fear by Ed Edelson. A very readable book that tells the true story from the point of view of a 10-year-old girl of the crisis of conscience a small Connecticut community, Southbury, faced as a German-American Bund sympathetic to the teachings of Adolf Hitler proposed to build a training camp just outside the town.
Lois had heard of Nazis and Hitler in Europe when her daddy and mother talked at the dinner table. She knew her parents did not like what was happening in Germany. Germany was thousands of miles from Southbury. This was the first time that it seemed Nazis might affect where she lived. She could see from the expression on the faces of First Selectman Core and her father that they were concerned. It is troublesome. I don't like their ideas. They're un-American. But you know, some folks say we should let them go ahead.
In the poetry category, Coming Through by Rennie McQuilkin, Poet Laureate of Connecticut from 2015 to 2018. McQuilkin has been writing poems in a day-to-day order that in this particular book take us to his new retirement home, where he finds beauty and renewal in the flora and fauna outside his window. He lyrically addresses the challenges that confinement and death during the pandemic have brought to his reduced world.
Dessert table. My oncologist says I am at stage 4 and assures me that my current treatment will work for only so long. The cancer has an agenda and will have its way. What my oncologist doesn't know is that my current stage is the dessert table in the First Congregational Church's Saturday food pantry. I'm the guy handing out the good stuff, the cake and pie, Danish and brownies, all that comes after the chowdown.
After a long discussion and analysis, the judges decided that 3 books, when combined, captured the spirit of Connecticut best this year, and so we are presenting 3 honorable mentions to Paved Roads and Public Money by Richard DeLuca, The History of Steep Rock Association by Carol Berggren Santoleri, Creating Connecticut by Walter Woodward. On behalf of the Connecticut Center for the Book, I congratulate both the finalists and the honorable mentions of the Spirit of Connecticut Award for their contributions to Connecticut's literary landscape. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us this evening. It was a splendid event, and I want to give additional thanks to those who made it the event that it was. Thanks to R.J. Julia Booksellers for rounding up books and promoting them online and making them available for tomorrow at the Literary Festival. Thanks to Kim Poe, whose spirit brought this event to life. Thank you to Caitlin Augusta, who made many of the Young Readers book trailers. Thanks to Susie Staubach of Willow Tree Pottery for making the awards. Thanks to Tiffany Hopkins, media producer extraordinaire, who put all the pieces together to make it a whole. Thanks to our partners at the Connecticut Literary Festival, and many thanks again to you, our viewers this evening. Last, but certainly not least, congratulations to both the finalists and winners of this year's awards.
Don't forget to come out to the Lit Fest tomorrow at 10 a.m. at Real Artways. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.